Welcome, no question about that. We are talking about the worst team in the history of Manchester United with Daniel. How's it going?
Oh, brilliant!
Top
So
stuff.
it's an honour to watch them.
It really is. I mean, it may be a little bit hyperbolic of Ruben Amorim. He maybe hadn't seen the sides of the 70s and 80s.
Also, I mean, he probably didn't. I agree. But do we know what I? So I've been working on snooker since then, so I haven't actually seen the context of this. Was he saying it? I'm guessing he wasn't saying it in order to publicly shame his players, but more as a state of affairs and partially taking responsibility. Is that what it was?
Yeah, uh, exactly. And he said, "We keep losing at home. It's unacceptable." As well in the same quote. So, yeah, it was very much in that context. All right, we'll get on to the game against Brighton. First, mention for Dennis Law. There were tributes at Old Trafford today. He passed away yesterday. And Old Trafford being Old Trafford, they didn't plump for a microphone, so you couldn't hear the bagpipes as they came out. But they were played, and there were some tributes and a moment of silence and a moment of applause for Dennis Law, who'd been ill for some time. I had certainly heard that he was near the end. What can we say about Dennis? You met him.
I love Dennis Law. He was my dad's hero, so I guess I grew up with talk of him and the kind of attitude that he brought to football. He was so few people are able to tread that line between being an absolute fucker to play against and playing with like all the aggression and fire that you want to see, and a total gentleman and mensch in the eyes of every single person.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I think the best story of that is when Dennis, playing Arsenal. I think it's Ian Storey-Moore is kicking him. Not Ian Storey-Moore, Ian Ure is kicking him. And they get into a scrap. They both get sent off. And then they go fishing together while the game's still going on. And it's just got an infectious personality, Dennis. I mean, when I met him, we were making Busby, and that was 2017, maybe. I can't remember now. Probably a bit later than that. But you could tell that we interviewed obviously quite a lot of people who were getting on in years for that film, and you couldn't see it in some people that the light was still there, but he couldn't quite find all the things that he wanted to when he was searching. But he was still a total gentleman, and I've been lucky enough to interview some good people and do some fun stuff in the course of work. But getting to meet Dennis Law was by far the highlight because of just everything that he represents, but also who he actually was. Like that real combination of two things. Most heroes disgrace themselves in some way or another. That applies to all the United heroes, more or less. And Dennis Law was able to play in a City team that were trying to relegate United, score in that game, and remain uniformly loved despite that. That is,
Yeah. And absolutely, scored with that back heel. It wasn't the goal that relegated United necessarily because there were a couple of games left, but he remained a hero at United despite that. And like an absolute legend of the club, 240 something goals for the club. The only man with two statues at Old Trafford, famously, the Trinity and the other one. And rightly beloved by everyone. The last of the Trinity to go. End of an era.
Yeah, I mean, he was also kind of the player who almost in a way was signified the end of the post-Munich period. Because when he arrived, United started to get good again, really. And there was still a couple of dodgy years when he was there. But then they win the Cup in '63, and he says that was the beginning of the start to the sunlit uplands, he called it. And he was a little guy, Dennis, and he was little when he was younger and had glasses. And I think his mum basically just told him if people kicked him to kick them back harder. And he took that attitude onto the pitch with him. And he's one of those players, like, he wasn't good at keepy uppy or that kind of thing, but he was electric in the box, just ridiculous reaction speed, ridiculously live, athletic, and a brilliant finisher and brilliantly calm under pressure. And his goal scoring numbers are ridiculous.
Mm.
And
he scored in the 63 cup final and missed the 68 cup final through injury. Of course, Brian Kidd played in that one, 18 years old.
there's good footage of him watching it in hospital.
Yeah. Extraordinary career and life, and seems to have not besmirched himself afterwards as well, which was jolly good of him. Very decent thing to do.
And he was sort of, in his way, the bridge between Bobby and George, in that Bobby was very old school, like war, and then you put Munich on top of that. Yeah. Then on the other hand, you've got George, who's a pop star. He's a totally different mindset and generation. And I think Dennis, they both liked, and he was kind of a bridge between the three of them. And he was everything a United player should be, everything. And there aren't many, if any, others I could say that about.
Certainly not many, if any, in the current squad. That is for sure. Well,
segue. I
was going to say Dennis Law will be.
Yeah,
exactly. He spent many years after he retired coming to Old Trafford. Of course, I mean, not necessarily officially part of the club, but doing many events.
He's on telly before the Rotterdam in '91, and he's got his coat over his shoulders, which is a look that you have to be immense to be able to pull off. And I can't remember if it's there or when they win the cup that he basically foretells United's immediate future and says, like, this is the start, like, get ready. But yeah, he might have got into this team until quite recently.
I think so. Yeah, probably just about. Yeah. He enjoyed Eric Cantona, of course, and it's coming up on the anniversary of Cantona Kung Fu kicking a Crystal Palace fan, and I'm sure Dennis probably enjoyed that one secretly.
I was there, and I, as I has probably said before, and I very much enjoyed that whole affair, and I'm still enjoying it to this day, actually. But
I wish one of these fuckers would kung fu kick someone, or maybe one of the fans should kung fu kick one of the players to sort them out and might give them a bit of life. I did see after Josh Zirkzee scored the other day, after United scored the other day, Zirkzee ran into the crowd, grabbed his crotch and vigorously wangled it up and down. I was like, I don't know whether I would necessarily do that, but, that was his natural reaction. Not much of that today.
No. I guess there were about 15 minutes around the goal where it wasn't dreadful, and the rest of it was dreadful.
Yeah. Truly. And, yeah. The ref, Banks, gave the pen, but he took absolutely forever to give the most obvious penalty.
And as far as my understanding of the laws go, that if you're not making any effort to play the ball and it's reckless, it's also a red card. Yeah, and I'm not. Obviously, that's not why we're shit. That's not why we lost. We always say this, but that is a red card, and Yakubo
really
Minter, who has one of the most Mancunian names ever, Yakubo
Minter.
He's been booked, and he hoofs the ball away. Again, I don't need people to be stopped playing for that. I'd be happy for it not to be in the laws, but it is.
Yeah.
I don't see how you could know what they are and not act in both of those, because it's really quite. They're not, for me, grey areas. It's not what happened there. I don't understand what happened. It's really obvious what happened there, and you've just totally aired it.
Yeah, he completely ignored it. So Minty whacking the ball away, he sort of pointed the United player and pretended that he was passing it back to him or something like that. A little bit,
right? Because he knew.
I was like,
he knew, didn't he?
He knew. Yeah, and the penalty, the triple punishment is only comes into effect if there's no attempt to play the ball. I mean, was he attempting to play the ball? It didn't look like it, did it?
His feet were nowhere near. He lifted the arms. It's come over the top of him. And
yeah. So yeah, the triple punishment should have been in effect at that point. But yeah, it wasn't. We're not getting much off the referees at the moment. I guess when it's going against you, it's going against you. It certainly does feel like it. I mean, it's easy to get into kind of conspiracy kind of territory with this one, isn't it? But not much going for us.
No, but I mean, when you're crap, you rely on decisions to go for you to have success, I think. And you have to always think that any success you have has to come in spite of refs, because you never know what they're going to do. I thought, talking about the goal, that it came at a time when they were actually pressing not dreadfully, and that was the time when we looked like we might score, and we were forcing turnovers high.
Yeah.
Thought Xerxes for a bit was like quite clean on the ball, but the difference I thought between him and him in midweek, apart from the fact that Southampton are less good than Brighton, was that then he had two players with pace around him because Garnacho was playing, and these fullbacks at wing back are killing me, man.
No, I know. I think it's really affecting. I mean, Dalot is physical in that he gets around a lot.
He might sometimes do something good, but he's not another attacker.
It's very rare. Yeah, it's very rare. And Mazraoui, I just don't think suits this role at all. In fact, I think it's affecting his form. Like he had a few excellent months as he came into the side, looked very composed, looked like a real footballer, and United really could do with a few real footballers. And now playing at wing back, he can't get up and down. I think he's making mistakes at both ends now, especially defensively. I mean, he was one of two players to play Mitoma onside for Brighton's first goal. Dalot also just left his man. So
right, I know, but that was one of your classics. Sort of not consecutive errors, more concurrent errors. Because also De Ligt goes charging out like the ox we know him to be. And when Ugarte is dealing with it, or maybe he doesn't deal with it, but it definitely you stay where you are. And so yeah, they crafted that goal well, and we presented it to them with some absolutely brainless decisions.
Yeah, I watched the replay a whole bunch of times, and I'm like, how many of them made mistakes? I mean, Maguire didn't step up. Mazraoui didn't step up. Dalot points at Maguire.
Was that the one? Is that Bruno? That one? Is that the one where Bruno plays the one?
No. I'm thinking the first Brighton goals. So the ball's played over the top, right into the channel, and it's a simple ball over the top, and Dalot is with Minte. Minte's on the right-hand side of Brighton's attack at the time. He obviously goes down their left. And he looks at him and just leaves him. I don't know whether he thinks Harry Maguire's going to take him, but he just doesn't bother tracking him. Of course, he's the goal scorer in the end. So there's 3 of the 5, at least, have made a mistake in that one. I mean, it seems like the more defenders we play, the worse we get at defending at the moment. It's pretty shocking, that was. I mean, at least 2 of the Brighton goals, because is it the second or the third Brighton goal?
Well, the third one's that goalkeeper, but he's also Yoro lets him put a cross in, and maybe Yoro should let him put a cross in, because if it hits him, it might go out for something. And if he knows there's no one there and the keeper's there, I guess that would be fine. But I can't accept very much more of this goalkeeper. We've seen more than enough. I mean, I knew when we got him that he wasn't a brilliant goalkeeper, but he did other stuff, and there's none of the other stuff, which is obviously not totally his fault. But it doesn't exist. It's not even like it's occasional. It's non-existent, and he isn't good.
10 errors leading to goals in his 2 years at United. 10. Dave, in 12 years at the club, 17 errors leading to goals. And I would bet, I didn't actually look at the breakdown, but I would bet they're quite heavily skewed to the first and the last 2 years of his time at the club. I mean, we binned Dave off, who's had an excellent season, by the way, at Fiorentina, to get the footballer, and we don't see the footballer.
However, De Gea wasn't good for us towards the end either.
No, so I mean, it's not like I have a problem with changing him out. It's just like who we got in is not the man.
Clearly. Yeah, it's definitely, he's not good, and he's not even close to good. And he does sometimes make some good saves, but
he does. And if you look,
but most all so few goalkeepers don't sometimes make good saves. I think Roy
That's
Carroll
right.
was one who never did, but mainly,
Well, I mean, he made a
so,
good save. There was like 6 yards behind the goal line. Remember that time?
yeah.
The thing with the Nun is like if you looked at his data earlier in the season, if you weren't looking at any of the games, just looked at the data. He had like 5+5 post shot expected goals against over and above the average keeper. Right, so it was outstanding. The problem is that the mistakes count for much more than the saves, like just much more. Right, so it's very, it's.
Yeah, well, he killed
I
the
mean,
game today.
it killed the game and it kills our confidence in him. I mean, the thing that keeps him in the side, of course, is that the reserve is a dodgy keeper as well. Uh, like it's and the shocking thing is that United's finances are so bad and there's so little opportunity for moving players on that they want to move on. I mean, of the top 10 earners, I forget who pointed this out on Blue Sky the other day, but it's a really good point. Of the top 10 earners at United, only 3 play regularly, right? And so, yeah, so you've got about £1 million a week of wage budget. That's just
Is it here? It says it Rashford, is it Luke Shaw.
Rashford, Luke Shaw, Casemiro don't play. Anthony might just scrape into the top 10. Mount for sure. Ericsson on a big wage as well. Yeah, there's loads of them. It's absolutely shocking. And we may get rid of Anthony this week, who played 6 minutes of today's game. But it looks like it's going to be a loan with no obligation with a proportion of his wages. It'll save United about £2 million. So
what's the point of that?
I don't know because
would you not just keep him?
I mean, I guess. I mean, it's marginal gains, right? It's £1 million worth of savings, but you're losing one of your players as a result.
He might just, I mean, you don't want it to be at the stage where you're relying on Anthony, but we're bringing him on, so we are. So presumably we're doing that because the option in the manager's mind is better to bring him on than whatever the alternative is, right? So why would we lose him if it's not a proper losing for him to go and shame himself somewhere else, play himself out of a transfer for him to then come back and us be stuck with him? Yeah, I don't think I'd be doing that.
Well, it's minor wage savings. United have
however much his coupon annoyed me.
Yeah, £16 million a year on the PSR cost. That's just the amortized transfer fee without his wages, right? So we're not going to. It doesn't look like Betis are paying a loan fee. I mean, I guess it will come out in the wash exactly what the deal is. But they're a mid-ranked Spanish side. All the money in Spain goes to Barca, Real Madrid, and a little bit to Atletico, who are some way behind. They're not making it. They are. Real Betis will make less money than the bottom team in the Premier League, right?
Yeah,
so
obviously, yeah.
So they're not going to be paying us much. I'm not sure the point of it. And then on Rashford, it seems like all the offers on the table are at much less than his half of his wages, right? So,
well, that's obviously where they're going to start, I guess. But
yeah, and so it'll save United £5 or £6 million a year on Rashford, I guess.
Remember when we used to bitch about Nani? Goodness me.
Good.
I wouldn't give to be bitching about Nani now, man. I mean,
be our best player.
On Rashford, there is, I feel like a sadness that he's probably not going to play for United again.
Almost certainly not.
What I think people need to bear in mind is if we look at the wilderness years as a piece, he's been one of the very best things about it, not one of the worst things. There's the off the pitch stuff, like at a time when it was really shit on the pitch, and during lockdown he made me feel something to be a United supporter at that time that I hadn't felt before, and I'll always be grateful for that. Plus, on the pitch, I think was he man of the match in that cup final against Palace. He's won the Europa
16. League. I can't remember actually. Yeah,
I think
might be.
He scores that brilliant goal at West Ham. Like he's been involved in United winning trophies, or almost all the good stuff that's happened has involved him in some way, sticking Demichelis on his arse, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
If in the end, right, football's about moments and good ones. Bruno's the only person that's anywhere near to him in terms of things that made you happy about United in the last decade. So when people are cutting him off, they should remember that, because
they rarely do.
We think about it without him. If we didn't have the good fortune to have him coming through our academy at this point, who would have been there instead? Like, it wasn't a calculated situation that got him to us. So hasn't worked out how we hoped it would. His fault, our fault. I'd prefer it if he wasn't leaving like this. I think it's time for him to leave. We're definitely missing him on the pitch. So all those competing things, but the main thing is, he's made it better, not worse. And don't lie to yourself just because you think you don't like him.
Yeah, the narrative around him has been particularly toxic, and when I talk about him on this show, people don't seem to like it. I get an awful lot of comments and, let's say, feedback of the X-rated variety about it, but
people are sending you nudes.
No. No, please do if you want. Go for it. No, he seems to have polarized people in a way that I suspect is like significantly driven by both fan and traditional media, and the narrative around him got particularly toxic, and it's a real shame that seems to be the environment. I mean, there are certainly people who feel like that about Bruno as well. I had one strange person sent a comment saying Bruno wouldn't get into peak Barcelona, so we need to bin him off. I'm like, what? I'm struggling to work out the logic. We've got so few quality players, and it appears we are doing our best to get rid of one of them. And there's hardly any left. Hardly any. I mean, we are in 12th for a reason, right? It's not by accident this season. And unfortunately, we have it's probably about the third biggest wage budget in the league. I mean, it's come down significantly over the last 3 years, and it will presumably come down a lot more in the summer. And maybe that makes some room. I don't think it's going to make room for any big signings this winter. Who knows? Maybe they bring in a left wing back or something like that, but it's not going to fix its goal scoring.
So I've got some wing. It would definitely help if it was an attacking wing back, because we're missing an attacker, and we don't attack with numbers. So I've got some United average shots to 90 and XG when playing wingers at wing back versus fullbacks at wing back. So the winger there, 16.4 shots to 90 and an XG of 2.13. And with a fullback, it's 14.1 shots to 90 with an XG of 1.58. 6 out of 7 games where the fullbacks say the wing-back United have conceded the first goal. I totally understand why he does it, because these are untrustworthy bunch of fuckers, so you want to give them safety in numbers. But we're so crap at scoring goals, and we're not so good at defending that we can compensate for that. We're winning 1-0.
We'll probably score fewer goals this season than we did in the last 2, and that was 54 and 58 goals or whatever it was. Absolutely pathetic numbers. I mean, it's as bad as it gets, and we have said that so many times, that phrase or something like it, in the last 3 years. And ever since Ralf Rangnick said there should be open heart surgery at United in April 22, and there was open heart surgery. Erik ten Hag signed 20 players, for fuck's sake. It's just they were mostly shit, and it didn't take United forward. In fact, it took United backwards, probably, actually. I mean, the fullness of time and history will let us assess this. But if you think about how Van Gaal did for the end of the last title-winning side, he broke it all apart and brought in players, and they were pretty shit, to be honest, all Van Gaal's players he brought in. I mean, Schweinsteiger pointed a lot. Schneiderlin was absolutely dreadful. There were a few others. Darmian, you're like, who hung around with a bad smell. 5 years past his peak and no legs left.
I mean, he got quite good again afterwards. We just had him in that period when he was recovering from injury. He got quite good again. Was it from Monaco?
He went to Monaco.
I mean, he signed Rojo. Rojo, never available, crap at toast.
Unforgivable.
But charged into the City dressing room with his top off, apparently. Van Gaal signed Herrera, and then who also was a million miles off good enough, but less hateful than some of the others at the time. So we were in some way tolerant of him. But then
Herrera, who's playing with Cavani at the Bombonera with
Boca.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, Herrera's someone I thought might make a good manager, actually.
He seems a student of the game, doesn't he? I mean, he is. Yeah.
Yeah, good communicator as well.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a decade of really bad decision making, and we're paying the piper. It's coming home to roost now. Unfortunately, our revenues are dropped. The commercial side is completely flat. The broadcast side is dropping and will drop again next season because we won't be in European competition, and we'll get a lower prize pool. We fortunately still box office enough to get all the facility fees from Sky, but City will probably make 50-60 million pounds more than us just from the Premier League alone, and an extra 100 million in Europe or something like that. Like, we're getting further and further away from the competition. We'll likely be overtaken by maybe even by like fucking Arsenal in terms of revenues. Maybe not this year, but it could happen. Like, the club as a whole is slipping backwards. The quality on the pitch is dreadful, and you've got Amorim, who's been given the worst hand possible. But it's fair to ask the question whether he's doing the right things with it, because like 10 defeats this season, he's losing half his games. It's like it's not particularly good. There's not much of a new manager bounce, is it?
might even be the opposite of good. And then on top of that, you see Wolves get a new manager, and there's an impact. I guess Ruud's been crap at Leicester, and you could just say with there, well, maybe he's crap, but also the players are shit. So here we are. These players, it's not quite as straightforward as that. I don't. In a way, it doesn't matter how much of it is the manager's fault. He's learning. It's really easy to make excuses for him. He came into a mess. He's got this new system. He can't implement it. He doesn't have players for it. They've hired him to play this system, so he can't not play it now. The only system he's ever used that has earned him this job. So he's going to do it. He hasn't got time to inculcate it properly because there's no training. He's getting used to the Premier League. He's come mid-season. All of that. And it doesn't even matter because if he fails, then what? So yeah. I don't feel for me like there's a stage where it could get so bad I'd say sack this guy. I don't, because that's just let him work.
I suppose if United got relegated, we might come down to that. But no, you're right. I mean, he's got a free hit as long as it's not total relegation this season. He's got that free hit. The problem is, because of what happened under Ten Hag and the £600 million that United spent, it takes 3 years to work that all out, unless you're going to take massive hits, or unless the Jim buy some Manchester United assets, which he really should do. It's he really should. I mean, it's okay. The Premier League said it's fine. He should buy Carrington for £300 million. Just do it himself. It's unfortunately he's not that kind of guy. He wants value, doesn't he? For his investments. Unfortunately, it's just going to take a long time to work this nonsense out.
I wonder what he would value himself at. His contribution to running a football club.
I'm not sure United fans would value it very highly right now, with good reason. So because he doesn't see a way out, this is why the club are doing awful cost cutting, letting players go on loan, freezing Rashford out. I'm sure that is a higher management decision as well as Amorim's, because if it was Amorim's, it's so bad on the pitch that you'd be like, well, might as well give this guy a go, right? If you bring Anthony on,
what's quite weird is he puts him on the bench against Newcastle and then doesn't again.
Never does it again, yeah.
Has he done anything, or are they just trying to make sure he doesn't get injured, or what? Or force him out? Or,
yeah. Well, I guess the really interesting thing is in 11 days' time, when this window closes, if they haven't sorted out a deal that is acceptable to everyone, what then? He would be at the club and you'd have to use him, or just let him sit on rock.
Well, that's one of those things. It's a game of chicken, isn't it? Because the clubs that want him know that he has to get gone, but they also know that if they don't make it in some way worth United's while, why will they bother?
Well, I would be thinking about the legal implications as well if they just refuse to play him. I mean, they're obviously going to pay him. The old Webster ruling is not really in effect anymore because of the new deal with the European Union. But at that point, you could it was basically understood that you could buy your way out of a contract. which would be a lot cheaper than a fee, I guess. Or maybe not anymore. I don't know. I mean, like destroying value at every turn here. So, but I mean, the point I was trying to make is there's really no options for Amorim to go and spend the kind of money that Ten Hag did. Like it's just not. It's not going to happen in the same way. Which is probably why we're hearing noises about them thinking about selling some of their saleable assets, because most of those top 10, I said, that aren't playing are on massive wages. There's no interest, right? There appears to be no interest in Casemiro, maybe from the MLS, but you wouldn't get a fee there. It doesn't seem like Saudi are coming in for him. Mount is unsellable because he's just injured constantly. Luke Shaw is unsellable. Victor Lindelof out of contract in the summer, like unsellable.
Also always injured now.
Also always injured. Yeah, there's just no assets there. Yeah, Rashford, like whatever has happened on the commercial side of things and with Amorim the manager, like that value of that asset is now lower than it was 2 months ago, undoubtedly. Right? You want him out? Great, fine. You think he's the virus that's causing all Manchester United's problems. Unfortunately, it's now going to double up on the problem because United will not get a big fee for him. The wages have a role to play in that as well. So there's no route out for Amorim to buy loads and loads of players. Really, the only route out is to buy younger, high potential players if you can get them at a reasonable fee. Because the other thing is no established Champions League playing player would come to United except for a premium in wages, and they've got to sort that out. I feel sorry for the guy in a way because it's a real bind.
Because then you get into that point where you're trying to be good at some not quite specified time in the future, but then you're signing players who are learning on the job while you're getting beaten, and it's quite hard to make that work.
Yeah,
and it feels like that is. On which point, I mean, this is completely tangential, but Baleba is the type of player I'd be looking for to play, who I think would be a better fit than Ugarte, with Mainu, like a better passer, runs with the ball faster.
He's an excellent all-round player. I mean, made a bad mistake today, obviously, for the penalty, but excellent all-round player. I mean, metrics are fantastic as well in all sorts of scenarios. But yeah, it's amazing how Brighton, I mean, obviously Tony Bloom owns a data company and they're doing some very specialist and unique stuff with that, but they pluck all these kids out of the Paraguayan third division and they're suddenly the best player you've seen in ages, and you're like, how do they do
the
it?
question will always be what then happens when they leave Brighton, because obviously there's certain environments that work for certain types of player and person. But I guess McAllister's doing well, because I think in the first sort of at the beginning when players started to leave Brighton, they didn't really do that much. But Ben White done well at Arsenal. Caicedo started to do well now. So
yeah, he's having a good season. Yeah.
And they've got that centre forward who I thought might be able to do a job for us.
João Pedro or
no,
Evan Ferguson.
Welbeck.
Yeah.
Who always plays well against United, and he's the kind of player that it's almost that we want Xerxes to be. Hold it up, intelligent, good touches, but not immobile in one of the most ludicrous ways you've ever seen for a top division footballer. Where maybe he's not slow, maybe he just looks slow. I don't know.
Who? Josh Xerxes? No, he's slow.
Xerxes.
Yeah, he's
definitely slow. That slow.
Yeah.
And how
the Brighton manager said he had met Ferguson and talked to him, and they talked about Danny Welbeck and said Danny Welbeck was one of his Ferguson's favourite players.
Yeah, we loved Welbeck. Welbs at the time, the two that suffered the most for bailing on us were Welbs and Raphael, who were really good players in a Fergie team, but other managers didn't quite understand them. And Van Gaal kicked Welbeck out for Falcao. Didn't matter that much at the beginning because he was always injured. He spent the best years of Welbeck's career were wasted almost because he was not his fault. So he was just injured. But so I'm quite enjoying his late years blooming. But actually, he's someone that I would happily have had at United the last couple of years because he's that kind of all-purpose facilitating pivot type centre forward. And when you've got
Yeah.
good wide players, that's a good thing to have. And it's probably better at it than Xerxes. I might venture.
Yeah, there's some stuff about Xerxes. I thought he was good when he came on the other night.
Agree.
He plays in that kind of shadow striker role, false nine type thing. But you need, like, if you're going to do that, you need players running beyond him, like fast players running beyond him.
And you need to build up more through the middle, I think.
Yeah.
It's like a lot we go wide a lot. And with Xerxes, you're trying to get him on the ball and go from there. And once the ball goes wide, getting him on the ball is actually harder. If you go through the middle, there's more danger involved, but you're then in the position to build more easily. He did some good things.
Most goals
today.
It's the best part of the pitch to score goals from. It's the truism that's always been true about football. And look at the data, right? Most goals come from central areas. And United are going wide through players who are not effective attacking in those wide areas, unfortunately. So Herzl also said we knew how United would play, and they did. So when Mazraoui and particularly Dalot ventured forward, they played the ball in behind them. They were very effective at exploiting that space time and time again.
I think one thing I would say about the manager is I do kind of like, you hear him speak about the game and he sounds like he watches the game and he is intelligent and he understands it. It feels like it's reasonable to have him work out how his system works in the Premier League. And he must know that he's going to need to refine it a bit based on the players that he has and just the nature of the football. And so, yeah, I don't feel like I'd like to have seen more. I'd like it to not be this shit, and part of that is because of him. But I feel like I'm liking enough of what I see of him to not be going, a start like this tells me that this guy is not the guy. He might not be, but yeah, like if Moyes had started quite like this, I'd have been. I mean, I wanted Moyes out by this point anyway. But yeah, I would have been saying this. Yeah, this is enough. This proves it. But I just feel like we got something, and we need to find out what it is and whether it works.
Yeah, he does need to. Like, I'm not arguing that he should just bin off 3-4-3 and just go to some other system, because it's not like whatever Ten Hag was trying was working with this group of players either, right? It's not like all our ills will be fixed. I mean, we were beaten today by a straight up 4-4-2, old school big man combo up front, and so it's not that I have a problem with. I do think he's going to have to find a way to get some results, because there's a line somewhere between like having a free hit this season, and it's okay if you lose some games and losing every fucking one, so the fans, the management, and the players lose confidence in you, right? It can't be that. Like those two games against Liverpool, which was a genuinely decent performance, and Arsenal backs against the wall, penalty shootout victory, it was great. And then what we've seen since, Southampton, dreadful. They played us off the park for parts of that game, right? It really did take a bunch of substitutions to change it. And Brighton, never really any doubt who's going to win today, I don't think. I mean, they've beaten us 5 times out of the last 6. Like,
I know what you mean, but I thought after there was a period till about half time where around the goal where I thought it wasn't bad. It was
competitive. United were aggressive. Like, so Peter Banks was letting stuff go, and I thought they kind of United figured that one out and quite aggressive.
I didn't feel like Brighton were about to score in that period of the game. But yeah, I think we had one shot on target, is that right? And that was the penalty.
That's the penalty. Yeah. One shot on target. Yeah. I think it was 0.25 XG from open play, something like that.
But it shouldn't be like this. And Manu also feels like we're almost just making him just like run up and down now. And we need to find the overloads. He's a player you want in combinations. You want the quick feet, then a pass, not the quick feet and then nothing. And it just felt like today, particularly, I just felt like I saw him just workhorse in his way up and down. It's not that I think because he's got skills, he shouldn't be running up and down. I don't. But I felt like he was covering a lot more ground than I would ideally want someone who I want to be fresh when he gets the ball near the goal. Like, we're not getting him. And I actually think that he could play as one of the 10s.
He could. I mean, it's a temptation, isn't it, to try and bit further.
Well, he's quite good on the half turn.
There isn't another option. I mean, he brings back Casemiro, who he appears to have zero faith in.
No, then you could only do it if you'd have Ugarte and Collier, I guess. Then Ahmad would be a wing back, and you'd have Bruno and Mainu behind whoever. Then your striker, you probably want your striker to be Højlund at that point, maybe. But
yeah. I mean, shifting Ahmad to wing back would help with the wide attacking build-up for sure. Yeah, no, I'd be tempted at some point to try that. I'm worried about burnout with Ugarte and Mainu. I mean, they're playing a lot of football at the moment. He took them off both on the hour, just after the hour today.
He was talking about this, and I'm not someone who's like, they're on £1 million a week or whatever. They should be able to play however much you ask them to. But he was talking that they were mentally tired and physically tired after Arsenal. And I was thinking, yeah, sort of understand that. But I just sound like an old man now, but in 99, when United played Arsenal in the Cup semi-final, when United played Juventus in the Champions League semi-final, between the two legs, they played Arsenal twice in games that went to extra time, and Sheffield Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
But no one was complaining about mental tiredness. So I'm not saying that it's not mentally draining. I'm saying that if you can't cope with the mental effort of just those two games, and most of them didn't play 120 minutes against Arsenal. Not a lot of them didn't play 120 minutes, and then all the Southampton game. I mean, come on. I found that that didn't feel like a good excuse to me. I didn't enjoy hearing it, because
I am worried
you want them to be able to do what was being asked of them.
Big games. There. Yeah. The mental thing is an interesting one, isn't it? Because you like, it's not like United are actually playing a lot of high pressure games. Honestly, a third round cup tie away is not the biggest games of their lives. So I mean, it's not the physical thing. It's injuries. The problem. I mean, did it get to the point? Ugarte against Southampton, look knackered, right? Clearly, Amorim doesn't trust anyone else in there, with good reason. He's got good evidence. I mean, he played Eriksen and Casemiro, and they got shit all over by.
That was right, but that was ridiculous. Like, you have to. If you're playing one of them, you can't play the other one. And actually, he got. I thought the Eriksen substitution the other day was a good one, because you got that composure on the ball, and that's really what Eriksen might be useful for. Although I think
Eriksen is useful for half an hour. Yeah.
One of the only good things about this game today was Bruno's delivery from dead balls was good, and it often isn't. It would be good if it could continue to be good, and even better if someone could find their way to doing something on the other end of it.
Good, Big Harry, yeah. Oh God!
Well, he does get that one chance that turns out to be offside and doesn't go for goal, heads it back across to someone else to fall over. I forget who it was. Yeah.
So United have Rangers on Thursday, and it's actually quite an important game. I mean, you wouldn't expect United to lose this one, but if we did, be under quite a lot of pressure in the final group game to make sure you qualify. I don't really want an extra 2 games. We're worried about fixture congestion now.
It's not just worried about fixture congestion. It should give the manager time to do something if you're not playing these games against these terrible teams.
Yeah, I mean, if United don't get in the top 8,
where are we now?
I'm just looking at 7th, and Rangers are 8th.
It's a big one.
It is a big one. Tottenham just behind us. We'll see Big Angie's still in charge on Thursday.
Oh my goodness. His interview even against Arsenal, where they could have been humiliated and they weren't. So I thought with 2-1, he might be a bit bullish. And it was really one of those interviews where it felt like all that this is missing is you saying it's like almost to Kevin Keegan, you're not capable of doing this, you're not going to do it. You're like,
he's so close to it. I mean, he stares at his feet during
really
the interviews
like
now. Poor man seems broken. Like,
well, he's just like, he's been infected by Tottenham. And
the only thing that could be worse is if he got appointed at United. Yeah, that would probably
it's ground him down. And you see it, like you see United do it to managers. They change it, they bounce in, and they slink out. And that's what happens.
So anyway, United don't make that top 8. And look, Spurs, FCSBU we play on the last day. Ajax, Real Sociedad, Bodo Glimt, who were decent-ish when we played them. So there's definitely a chance that we might not get enough points. We'd then get a 2-legged seeded playoff against some other absolute shite. Just
a shite derby.
I mean, there'd be like 19 games in February at that point. Yeah, it would not be good. So yes, not blowing this one against. I mean,
and
how much Scottish football do you watch, Dan? I can't say I
haven't seen. Any. I mean, I watch a bit, but I haven't had to watch any for work this season, so I guess I haven't watched much this season. Rangers aren't good though. That I know, but they'll come and they'll put it about, and we don't know how United might respond to that.
They did destroy Fraserburgh in the Scottish Cup this weekend of the Highland League.
Not to be sneezed at.
Yeah.
We should find a way past Rangers, really. But it feels like, we got to the point now with the strikers, haven't we, where you play one and then he's crap, and then you play the other one, and they might have a few moments here and there, and it just goes, you're just cycling through them now with the strikers. I don't know. I assume that we will stuff our way. We'll be stuffy and we'll get past Rangers, I would imagine. And the thing is if we can stay in this competition and we can stay in the FA Cup, then you just you don't know with a bit more time to do some coaching and
could be good by the end of the season. You never know.
Just to get at least one proper player who might make a proper immediate difference would be very helpful. An attacking left wing back would make a big difference.
Last time Rangers came to Manchester, like 900,000 of their fans turned up in the city centre and smashed up Piccadilly Gardens. So hopefully they behave themselves this time. But I'm sure there will be a good following. I went to university in Scotland, so I did go and see Rangers and Celtic. And sorry to piss off any Rangers fans, but I always enjoyed Celtic Park a lot more. But there you go. This one's Old Trafford anyway.
So I've been to both, and I would say by far the best atmosphere I've ever experienced at football was at Ibrox the first time United played them when Phil Neves scored. Just obviously after the goal, not much, but for the sort of 15 minutes before the game until the goal, the noise and the hatred was phenomenal. And Ibrox itself is a beautiful football stadium.
It is, really is.
This Archibald Lee facade, it is beautiful. Ibrox.
Yeah,
so
it is.
As an actual ground, I actually prefer Ibrox to Parkhead, but not really keen on either of them. Like the clubs, I don't suppose.
We played them in the pre-season, beat them 2-0, but it's the first pre-season game, so I don't think there was much to say about that one, really. It's not going to tell us much. I mean, it was a bunch of kids that played for United. Where do we go from here? I mean, lose on Thursday.
Coming out of the weird, where are you now? Lose on Thursday wouldn't be good. I mean, Ahmad's still quite good. I mean, it's quite funny, isn't it, that Ten Hag was giving him time to force him.
Ahead of Ahmad. He'd play absolutely anybody.
I think Ralph and Ten Hag didn't rate him.
Yeah, apparently not.
I mean, what I like about him is he's always trying to commit defenders. Always, like, I mean, the goal is another goal that comes about because he's scavenging.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was actually saying he thinks that because if you think he played for Rangers and did nothing, Ahmad, and then he goes to Sunderland and for saying he thinks like the riding of tackles that we see, he thinks is something he learned in the Championships. Where else have you ever been tackled? Really like that. And he, yeah, so he was a minor bright spark, I suppose. I just, yeah, we need like the thing, but with him also is that we don't with Xerxes doesn't want to attack the front post. If when Ahmad goes around the outside, you need someone attacking the front post, and Xerxes is always pulling off, and yeah, Højlund doesn't do it enough, but
yeah. I mean, there were a couple of occasions today when Ahmad attempted to go around his full back, and there was no one in the box. That is certainly a problem. All right, well, Ruben Amorim called it the worst Manchester United side in history. Maybe, he said, maybe the worst Manchester United side in history. So he did at least qualify it. It's not. I don't know. We're both old enough that we saw United in the 80s. They were pretty bad. Pretty bad.
They were bad. They did always have Brian Robson.
Yeah.
And for quite a lot of it, they had Norman Whiteside and Paul McGrath as well. And Mark Hughes. But yeah, this is a shower of shit. I mean, it is, and at the same time, we know that they're not terrible players. And you watch that.
They're not, but they are underperforming. Like both their compensation as players and what we expect of them. So at some point.
So when I say they're not terrible players, what I mean is, if you think about the players in the mid to late 80s, like Peter Davenport, Terry Gibson, Alan Brazil. I mean, Mark Higgins, like a little bit before that. These are terrible players. Like these are Ralph Milne.
Dundee United's finest, Ralph Milne.
I mean, he was actually good at Dundee United, and his goal that wins them the league, the chip, is one of the great goals. But those, and then we signed like Danny Wallace and Mike Phelan, Neil Webb. These players are of a higher level than those, I think. But
I can't remember if I've ever told this anecdote on the show, but I was with a few people from the supporters club down by the water, and one of us had a ball, we were kicking it about, and Danny Wallace was there for some reason. And we were like, Danny, pass us the ball. And he shanked it into the water. What a player. All right. God, there's enough of this. Sorry, everybody. The three people that are left listening to this after 45 minutes of misery. People don't like listening to podcasts when United crap as it is. But then we've been depressed for all of this. So sorry about that. Hopefully, United do something on Thursday.
We'll be fine.
See ya.